All right, we are live. We are live. Welcome. I'm just going to sit here for a few moments and wait for some people to arrive. Hope everyone is doing well. Whether you're picking this up on the live stream or you're catching it later on, welcome all. Very interesting time to be alive right now. Very interesting time. And with that, I'm here to discuss just some personal things and some collective things that have come online. I have some notes to discuss what I'm going to discuss. And as we know, though, as the collective streams start to come forth, whatever is going to come forward is going to come forward. I've learned not to necessarily title these things beforehand anymore because we live in flow and who knows what's going to come forward. So anyways, welcome all if you're here. We're just going to start out with just purifying our fields. A lot of us right now in the journey of Wayshowing and being active participants on social media and sharing our knowledge and our wisdom right now really have to take more precautions when it comes down to how we're operating from an energetic level and also how we're setting up our personal space while we're doing these discussions. So as much as I like to go quote unquote impromptu, there's also a little bit of behind the scenes work that needs to happen to make sure that we're in a safe container here. So if you come in and you're feeling energy moving, that's just for the sake of the audience and for the sake of myself as well. Because we want to make sure that we're setting up a healthy energetic container that is filled with love and support as we were discussing these things. Right now, a lot of people especially those that are bridging the gap between truth seeking and light work. So even they're kind of coexisting in the same plane right now. And because of that, there's been a lot of interference and some of us have had to take a step back and take precautionary measures for our own personal energetic safety and our personal energetic autonomy and for the sake of our quote-unquote sovereignty in order to make sure that we are providing high vibrational information, but that we're also supporting and uplifting the collective and what is to come and not necessarily feeding into an old narrative as some of us are in the midst of wanting more of the new, and that's a lot of our job. And so with that, I have to take some energetic precautions. So with that, thank you all for coming in. I'm just going to invite everyone to come in. And I am going to be doing energy work here just for the sake of this container, for the sake of this room. And also, that's just what I do. I'm an energy worker. I transmit codes. And so that's going to be happening during this. But I also want to make sure that we are safe. And so I want to remind us that we are sovereign and we are free in this room. And as long as we speak that through our heart and shine that outward, I ask you all to join in on the unified container here and be able to hold as we just kind of sit here and allow this to assimilate what needs to assimilate. So I have some talking points, but once again, you know how this flows. And if you want to pop in and say something, you can. Right now, it's kind of hard for me to read screens just energetically. There's a lot of big upgrades and things going on, so it's kind of hard to see the screen. I can see myself, but that's about it because the energy that's opening up. So if you type in and I'm not reading it, it's nothing personal. It just does take a lot of effort and focus to zoom in on the screen and what's being said. So first things first, first talking point, then we'll start here in flow. The collective mental body. So right now, we've noticed it's really calmed down a lot, at least for me. The collective streams aren't so much as noisy and chatty as they were. So over the past couple of days, we've kind of noticed a drop off and a tapering in the mental body of the collective. So the stir up of recent events, and I'm just going to call it recent events because where I am at in the quantum now, it no longer exists. So of course that means that with living in this linear construct, even though we're escaping the linear construct, it may still be existing, but in the quantum now that I'm working with, it's no longer here. If that makes sense. Just takes time for that to dissolve out of our field and to dissolve out of our reality. But with the recent spike up of events, the collective mental body went on full charge. Okay. What ended up happening was, of course, in the conscious, what I would call quote unquote the conscious collective, we're very much so aware, okay, of the thought processes of the mental body and how this affects our day to day. But collectively, when everything started to come to the surface with the recent events and our root chakra opened up and all of those biggest quote unquote fears and wounds came to the surface, it started to hyperactivate the collective mental body, which caused a lot of us to kind of get ensued in the mental game of what's going on. So there's folds to this and why the mental body was going so quote unquote nutty. One of the reasons the mental body was in hyperdrive was because we had a layer of the collective that is waking up to a reality of truth that isn't being told to us in the media. So because of that, it caused a stir in the pondering of what really is to go on, which is nice because it created an expansion in consciousness for a large portion of the collective. But it also started to keep a lot of us up here and in these ranges, especially with the recent energy streams that have hit and what they've been illuminating. So one portion of this perspective is the collective of truth seekers that were starting to dive into this, and as well as we were finding the quote unquote newly awakening collective starting to wonder what was going on in all the fears and all the traumas coming to the surface. So within the layering of the collective mental body, we had the truth seeking, the diving, the expansion of consciousness, as well as being able to have the newly awakening ones popping up to what's going on and all the fears surfacing. What we had called forth as a collective of our higher selves and those that are the ground crew for a dissolution of the collective mental body. What this caused was energy streams to come in, and they're still coming in right now, that were illuminating what we would call the lower mind of the collective in order to illuminate and shed and clear that more. So I'm stating lower mind from a state of the human being able to perceive what I'm talking about, not from the level of separation in the dualistic construct, because there is no higher lower. But when we're speaking of the lower mind, we're not speaking of the higher mind consciousness, which is the higher awareness of what is truly going on and being able to take this up to a higher plateau in order to see the orchestration. So what we had noticed is a big kick up in the lower body of the mental, of the collective. And with the illumination of this, we're starting to notice that that's kicking off and things are now starting to dissolve a little bit and quiet down. A lot of this is from the radical acceptance of the fact that a lot of people, like at first, you know, when you're kind of put on an energetic timeout, collectively, people don't want to be on energetic quote unquote timeouts, but it's very real for what's happening right now. There's been some memes surfacing, and for me, it really hits close to home, is it's like the universe sent us to our rooms for a timeout. So there's layers to why this is going on. Obviously, it's kind of like sit down and think about what you've done for a little bit. We were sent to our rooms and forced to go inward, and there's still a lot of the collective that doesn't want to do that, and they're resisting that, and that's okay. That's just where they're at on their journey. And as we know, for those of us that are awakened and conscious, when the universe wants you to do something and you don't listen, the voice gets louder and louder until you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do. Okay, so if you're, you know, as many of us know on this journey, if you don't go inward and you haven't been, like, the universe might do something to where you're now having to lay in bed for a little while and think about what's going on and really do the introspection. Or you might find that things now have to leave and everyone all of a sudden leaves you in the quote unquote abandonment wound because the universe needed to create space for you to go within and to stay away from the distractions. So everyone's handling this differently. And what it's caused though for some of us is now we were on our journey and we were about to start the next phase. But because of this quote unquote collective wild card, what it's done is it's actually now created an opportunity for us to upgrade and to expand. So this is different for everyone, but I wanted to mention this part of the collective because there's things that some of us were meant to receive energetically, templates, codes, upgrades that we were going to receive in time as a part of the new venture or the new expansion that we were stepping into. But what happened with this event was it was essentially, and this is what I had heard in, I had heard this through a tarot reading, and it just really made sense to me, and I think Cryon was the one who mentioned it, but this whole event was essentially a wild card. Like, we had a bunch of different potentialities as a collective that we could experience, and this situation was kind of a wild card event. And it's not a reflection of anything that we did personally, okay? But it's a reflection of just kind of the way the events unfolded. And so because of that, if you've been doing your work and you've been like forced to go inside, and now you're forced to do that again, you might be getting some upgrades. And so with that, it's really cool. It's fun to play with. I'm learning some new things, and it's really exciting. I really do actually enjoy this experience, and we're kind of getting some new gifts, okay? Some gifts that came a little early that were gonna come eventually. And with that is the return of aspects. So I'm being called to dive into, how should I do this? So aspects returning. Okay, we're gonna go into the collective ego. So right now, we're going through a huge transcendence, and it's the start for many. So we had, as the Kundalini and soul sparks that have been occurring recently, over the past months, we've had a lot of soul spark ignition, and we've had a lot of introduction of soul pieces and soul aspects and awakening. What is starting for many is the transcendence of the ego, of the lower structures of the mind, or the, what's coming through is like the reptilian brain. We never fully dissolve, like I truly believe we don't fully dissolve the ego. It's just that the soul takes over to such a degree that the ego is very small, and it stays in an integrated aspect within us, and it still plays a role. We never fully dissolve or transcend, but the soul speaks over that to where the ego and the lower mind doesn't control. So right now we're going through a big ego breakdown. And the song that was coming through right before I hopped on was "You Can't Always Get What You Want" by the Rolling Stones. And this is coming forward not to necessarily state that you can't receive everything you want out of life, but right now with the higher self orchestration, the universe is going to make sure that you receive what you need right now, until that full alignment occurs from the embodiment stage. And when you are fully embodied, then you'll notice that the wants change and they arrive a lot quicker. This is what we kind of call the 0 point. So this is more of a personal 0 point than a collective 0 point. So with the personal 0 point, okay, if we look at when we manifest, we're manifesting from 2 points of consciousness, from the higher self and from the human self or the temporal self. So when we are embodied, we're allowing those 2 points of focus to actually unite as one. And so we're gonna notice a speed up in being in quote unquote alignment, but also a speed up in being able to receive what we need to receive out of life. So, okay, hold on, we're shifting something here, so let me just pull this energy in. So right now with the ego dissolution that's occurring, we're finding that a lot of people are getting frustrated right now. And I'm noticing this in my own personal day-to-day, that the interactions between one another is shifting and changing. So this is a direct result of the codes that came in from 2.2 of this year to 2.22. A lot of this was the no more BS kind of operation. And for those of us that are holding blueprints for like the 12D templates, which the 12D template work was, a lot of it was wrapped up last year, and some of us received the codes early for the 12D templates. What this is causing is a change in the interpersonal dynamics between other individuals. So if you're in the Lightworker Collective, you're in the collective of that, and you're noticing that your interactions are changing with how you are approaching one another, a lot of this is for those of, this is, now I have to state, this is for those that are in higher self-embodiment. So if you are on the journey of full higher self-embodiment and you are working towards, you're getting closer to the dissolution and in full embodiment of the higher self or the unified soul essence or the collective of your soul group, which is just all of your pieces and aspects combined into one. What we are noticing is that the connections and the way that we are connecting with one another is changing, okay? So your compassion might look different. And this is a big part of what I was gonna go into later, which is about blueprinting, which is something that I'm really dealing with right now, and it really ties into changes in the way that we behave and interact with one another, okay? So basically with all the systems that are breaking down, okay, we've got this like 5D overlay of the grids that is coming down and anchoring more and more, that's dissolving more of the old matrix, quote unquote. What's happening is as those systems are crumbling, it's actually freeing up aspects of ours that are now returning. And so we're noticing a lot of shifts and changes. A lot of the collective of lightworkers are now meeting councils. We're meeting the Council of Light. We're getting information. Channeling abilities are coming online. New energy abilities are coming online. This is very, very, very common right now in the collective of what I would call the crystalline collective. It's because we have a lot of activations going on and the 12-strand DNA is fully coming online now. So how this gets triggered and online is through the Heroes Gamos within. So this is those that have been doing the work towards shedding and dissolving the masculine and feminine wounds and finding that embodiment within where both aspects can speak in coordination and we become fully embodied in the Heroes Gamos. So many of people would say that this is the twin flame journey, but this isn't the journey towards, the way that I'm discussing this is not the journey towards an end goal destination of receiving the love of your life, but it's that true self-love that you find within in the Heroes Gamos, the true divine union with you in spirit. So with this divine union within, we're finding that we are now holding, some of us are holding different templates and different blueprints, new ones. And so because of that, we now have to interact differently with one another. So what that comes across as is maybe your older way of showing compassion may not show up in the same way that you're showing compassion now. It might be a little bit edgier or feel a little bit edgier. Part of this is the return of these aspects as we are freeing up space. So as we're freeing up space in our body and we're getting new aspects, what happens is we've got so if you look at the soul, the creation of the soul, we can look at it as a single spark, like a single light being, but it is made up of so many different essences. And the thing is that when these essences return and we are ready to let that be activated within us, this is a part of the 12-strand DNA activation, what happens is that aspect needs to come forward and be in body with us and walking around and playing and talking and walking as it learns to adjust to the new environment. So some of these aspects don't like it here. Some of these aspects don't agree with humans. Some of these aspects are really wounded. And some of these aspects are very traumatized. They've been, we've got aspects that have been enslaved. We've got aspects that have been, if you ever had your fall from consciousness, okay, where you can actually return to source and see where your fall of consciousness was, you can see everything you've been through and then understand kind of why we either consciously chose to be split up or were split in this lifetime because we wanted to put the puzzle pieces back together of the game of us, okay? So as these aspects come in, a lot of this you might find that you're a little bit edgier. You might find that you just want to isolate more. You might find that you're just not the same, okay? So this isn't a mood swing, and it's not necessarily anything bad. What it is it's you adjusting to the new soul piece that is returned and allowing that to be activated within you by allowing it to come through and by working with it. So it's an adjustment period. And this is part of the blueprinting process that many are going through right now, especially with higher self-embodiment, is that when you are calling in this, okay, you are now shaping the way that it exists in this realm and how you work with it. So when we look at blueprinting, okay, now I'm gonna just, because I'm being called out, I need to explain blueprinting a little bit. So blueprinting is essentially building code, or we could talk about template building in a very, very, so the truth changes, so my words are gonna change based on which realm of consciousness we're discussing it. So at the very, very basic level, it's a pattern. Okay, so what you're doing is like, Earth, was on a very not so nice trajectory, and the blueprint needed to be switched. So what did we do? We started to change our behavior patterns. We started to act differently. We started to, because we needed that collective shift. A lot of us chose to project down into this reality right now to work through different systems so we could blueprint those systems. So like some of us, like for me, for instance, I walked through the mental health system. And I saw everything wrong with it because, once again, I was supposed to break that pattern not only from my family, so it's not only tied into bloodline, but it's also personal and uploading this potentiality for others that are going to be awakening and for the new earth way of how we're blueprinting like behavioral health issues. I chose to walk through that system to kind of see everything flawed so I can make the adjustments within to myself and how I choose to handle my behavioral health symptoms. And then all of us, that's essentially blueprinting. That's what I'm discussing with blueprinting. So a lot of this too is we're blueprinting the allowance of these aspects to exist here and now, and how we are allowing this aspect to speak through us to other humans. So like, for instance, I have an aspect, I'm not gonna name what group it's from, but a star group that will come forward and it doesn't wanna be here. It doesn't like humans, it's really nasty. And I have to talk with this piece and be like, hey, listen, like I know you're here, I need you in my unified soul essence, but like, listen, we gotta be a little bit more compassionate, okay? We gotta be a little bit more, and I kind of coach this thing from the human aspect on what it's like to live in this density and interact and to be a compassionate, loving human being that is heart-centered here in this reality. When I'm doing that, that information is actually getting sent up to that group, and that group is now receiving the codes, and it's actually helping to change in the personal relationship between us and between some of the higher realms, okay? So every one of us, like if you're here right now in this library, you watch this video, you are blueprinting something in your life. So the blueprinting could be relations between humans and animals. Okay, so you might be in a family that's all meat eaters, and like you were raised in a country where chicken fighting was real, okay, and like that was a pro sport. Part of you blueprinting now and kind of resolving that quote unquote karma and that bloodline stuff is by now showing more love and compassion to animals and choosing a plant-based diet. This is an example. So blueprinting can happen in interpersonal relations. It can happen with relations between you and your loved one, between you and your family, between you and society. There's collective blueprinting that's going on. There's healing blueprinting going on. And this is what I'm discussing right now, is it's allowing the blueprinting of these aspects to now get used to what it's like to live in this density and to still be a heart-centered, compassionate human to those that don't really know what's going on, but also now allowing the newer, higher level templates to sit and to reside, and making sure that our vibration stays nice and high, we stay nice and open, that we are clearing our energy body and clearing our soul enough to be able to allow these aspects to be a part of the change. Because there's a lot of beautiful wisdom that this is why it's coming forth now, because in our roles, okay, in our roles in the light working journey, which it's going to be different for everyone as we all have our own journey, these aspects need to be here because they're a part of the big shift and the great change. And it's actually a gift to us through everything that we've worked with to allow these aspects to sit here, to shine and to be themselves. But the problem is those essences sometimes are, they don't fit in well. And so that's part of this blueprinting design. So if you notice that, like you have some, wild energy happen for a night, and then you notice a big shift in your energy the next morning, and you might be a little bit more edgy or a little bit more joyous, or this could be a part of you having a new aspect that returns as these systems are crumbling. And because of that, you've gotten a piece of you back. And because of that, we're now having to learn how to interact with this piece. How do we work with it? Okay. So this is a big thing. And the big thing that I'm working on right now is blueprinting the new earth healing. And so because of that, the interactions are changing with people and the way that we operate. When you land at a new level of consciousness, the way you go about doing things has to shift and change, okay? So it's not like, and I want to state this because when we shift, because we're at that, I'd say we're at a collective brink of shifting into 5D totally. So now the collective is going to have to learn how to operate in 5D. Well, guess what? The shift from 5 to 6, 6 to 7, all of those bridges, we have to now change the way that we work, the way we operate, the way we interact, depending on the level of consciousness. And so this is really, it really does change. And the biggest one that I'm noticing right now is the jump from 7 through 12, where we're no longer working with guides, we're only working with our soul. And so we're noticing that now things are gonna change. But this is the fun part, okay? The fun part about blueprinting is that now you're like, cool, I got this new aspect, or cool, I got this new download, or cool, I got this upgrade. Okay, now you get to work with it. A lot of this journey for us was like diving into the crap, diving into that dark night, the shadow stuff, which is an important part of the process. But for some of us that have done the work, we kind of get to have fun with the new toys that are arriving. So think of blueprinting like, hey, like I just got a new Lego set and I get to figure out how to build it. This is part of the build out of the energetic architecture, but also what we're building out for New Earth in our creations. And so if you notice this shift going with you where you're talking to people differently or you're handling things differently, I invite you to just go inside and go, what is this? Is this collective? You know, is it a mood thing? Do I have a new aspect that's here? How can I welcome in this new aspect and allow it to work through me and allow it to breathe and be that living light embodied? It's going to be different for everyone. So for me, for instance, because I just saw a message and I want to kind of share a personal story of what happened. When this kicked off, okay, when this whole thing kicked off, I told myself I was going to stay out of it. And what did I do? I got right into it. I got sucked into it because, once again, we're finding the merge of the light work and the truth seeking going hand in hand. And what I'm saying by that is like, it's always been one because truth is a part of light work, but there's like so for me, when I became more aware and more conscious of what was going on, I became more interested in what was going on, which is cool. You know, I wanted to become more interested because I feel like that helps to illuminate and to expand our consciousness, to let our mind go there. Like, what is really happening behind the curtain? What perspective am I playing in? It's a fun part of the process. But what had happened was I ended up getting myself sucked into that reality stream where then I was right there with the collective and I was feeling everything. And I went from staying so long in this like heaven in body to now being in the collective hell. And I had to get out. The collective hell is because, once again, I was on social media, I was getting engaged with it, but also it was like the prime focus. But as soon as so what Samantha and I did was we chose to consciously step off social media and just focus on ourselves, our joy. We got a new kitten. And we're playing with the kitten every day, we're training the kitten, and we shifted our focus. So we shifted our focus and we noticed a big shift in the dynamic with ourselves, how we're holding ourselves, and we weren't allowing this stuff to affect us. So it's something that we both needed to do because we recognize that like right now, especially for me, I do a lot of collective work. And I've done a lot of collective transmutation, a lot of collective clearing, and a lot of collective space holding for quite some time. So for me, you know, everyone's role is different. We got people ground crew right now that are walking the streets clearing this stuff. And then we got people that are kind of holding space and making sure that like our role in holding the field once again, it's different for everyone. So this isn't a brag thing. It's just an awareness of why people operate different ways. But I chose to consciously shut off social media to let this stuff kind of be what it needs to be. And I started to access more of the quantum now, which is more of what is being called forth. And when I tapped into that quantum now and started to read the streams of what was coming forward, there was a lot of beautiful things on the way, and it really helped me to not listen to this. So as we are like, this that we're in right now already happened some time ago. It just took time for it to filter through the ethers and to land in here. So a lot of this kind of blocking it off helped me to go upward and to see what's happening in the quantum now, which now provided hope and opportunity to let you know that in the quantum nows that I'm experiencing and in the reality stream that I'm living in and the timeline I'm tapped into, it's a beautiful future for us. So because of that is now tying into the whole discussion of the Atlantean imprints. So while the Atlantean imprints and the fall of those conscious civilizations, like those timelines have been cleared, But some of us may be still holding on to an energetic imprint associated with and I'm looking at masculine held consciousness, like what I would call a conscious collective. So we're looking at like Atlantis, Pompeii, not so much like Lemuria and Petra, which was more divine feminine, but I'm looking at more of the divine masculine component. With the fall of those civilizations was held an imprint of regret for us and blame that we solely put upon ourselves to not want that to happen again. So if you notice that when this stuff kicked up, okay, a lot of light workers were called to action. They were called to, let's get in the front lines and let's do this. While some of us got the messages of, no, 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 don't do anything. You need to break this pattern. Because that still may be weighing as an imprint within our field. Not everyone, okay? It's not everyone. So if this resonates, take it. If it doesn't, throw it away, okay? It's different for everyone. But there is, for the collective of light workers, there's this blame that, oh crap, fall of civilization, step up because it's all gonna crumble. No, 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 okay? So what's happening, and this is the way that I was shown this at an energetic level, and once again, this is just my piece of the puzzle. So we all have different pieces of the puzzle. Always tune into your piece of the puzzle and then cross-check, okay? So this is just my piece of the puzzle and the way that I've seen it and the way that my soul has shown it to me. With the fall of a distorted, so we're looking at the US here, okay? And kind of overall, when I'm speaking of a divine masculine, or not a divine, when I'm speaking of a masculine civilization, I'm speaking of in the embody of do, go, 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 rat race, 9 to 5, okay? So what's occurring is that I'm just sending some light to a situation I just read about, so, because there are a lot of people struggling right now out there. So with the fall of a quote unquote masculine civilization, okay, when we look at the fall of, and what I'm saying here is the action, do, the rat race, 9 to 5, go, 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 okay. The way that we allow that to crumble is by stepping into the being. By getting more of the collective to step into the being role, in the receptive and being with self, we're actually now as a collective harnessing the divine feminine frequency, and we're allowing that to anchor more. And allowing that drop of purity to do what it needs to do. So that pure divine feminine frequency is going to be doing the big clearing out that needs to happen. And it's been here for quite some time, but when we step in as a role of collective light workers by stepping into the being and allowing, we're breaking that Atlantean seal, that Atlantean imprint, but we're also allowing ourselves to harness more of that frequency. And that divine feminine frequency is going to help to clear out, to then provide in the next wave of the divine masculine to come in. And it really is what's been shown to me. It's very essential right now towards breaking that pattern. Because what it's doing is when you do that too, okay? There's space that's being made for some of us right now to step into new parts of our journey and what we're supposed to be doing. And what we're doing is we're getting prepared for whatever that next now is. So it's not to just completely shut off and not be of service and not help out people. Always be there for your fellow human. But when an airplane is going down, you put the mask on yourself first before you can help anyone else. Especially when it comes to illumination and holding space. We have to make sure our fields are strong. Because in that unified effort, we're holding a large container to allow people to access the new. This is part of holding space on that bridge. The rainbow bridge to the new. And while some of us want to step up and we want to be of service and we want to be out on the front lines helping, we have to hold those gates open for others to come because we want everyone there. And not everyone wants to be saved right now. Sometimes, okay, when it's the soul speaking to the soul, this is part of this ego dissolution. What the human may want is not what the human may need for their growth and their expansion. And this is part of the blueprinting and the template holding. And this is part of the process that feels a little crappy. And you notice my mood came down because this is a very serious situation for me, is that some of us right now have to allow the stuff to kick up. Because once again, we have our patterns of wanting to play savior role. But a part of the 222, the 2222 no more codes is what I call them, the power and accountability codes, is we're loving from a new space. If there's someone that's wounded there, okay, and we get that call and that urge to go help that person up, you will know. But there's some of us where we have to love from a spot of distance and allow things to work out the way that it's supposed to. And it's going to be different for everyone. Everyone's holding a different role here. Your role and what you're called to do at a soul level is important. And at the end of the day, always listen to your soul before you listen to someone on a screen. Okay? Always listen to your soul before you listen to someone on a screen. This is just one perspective. And this is my personal perspective of what I'm going through personally. To be able to sit there and to talk about every single collective stream would be nearly impossible and take a lot of time. So what I'm doing is I'm speaking on a personal note, but I honor anyone that's getting that call to be there. Like the grocery workers, like the people that work in hospitals. We have a family member that works in a hospital and got infected. You know, that there's the superhero team has really grown. Okay. And a lot of this though is not feeling guilty for what your soul is called to do. Because we live in a society where we don't listen to our soul and we listen to others, and then we fall out of alignment. A lot of this work now is about stepping in and listening to your soul and what your soul wants to do, and not listening to the external, and not feeling bad if what you're doing is different than the external, because you hold your role. And part of honoring that role is honoring your soul and honoring what you're called to do. So, I know I got real for a little bit there. Also doing some energy work about this because it's a big piece that we need to illuminate that I've been working through personally too, which is feeling bad. But recognizing that every single day I'm calling in my soul and I'm listening to what I'm supposed to do. And when my soul says do nothing, when everyone is doing something, I don't follow the herd. I'm a wayshower. Part of leading that way is by listening to my soul and what my soul is telling me to do. And a lot of that is having to go within and having to shut off the judgment that I could potentially face from everything outside of me telling me that I'm doing something wrong, because I know in my heart that I'm doing something right. So that's what this time really is about. It's connecting with yourself. Very rarely do we have, I've never seen it in my entire history alive, do we have a time where the entire world is put on pause? And we're not, there's people out there that aren't capitalizing on that. It's like, dude, the entire world's on pause right now. Take the time to enjoy and to do what you're called to do. We have a choice point, okay? We have a moment to sit there and to look at this entire experience as some really, whatever it may be, whatever narrative you want to run based on the perspective you're running at that time. You have a choice to take everything up to the very, very top and to see the beauty in the entire experience. And then what do? You end up calling in more beauty, not only for yourself, but for the collective. This pattern, though, the Atlantean story in this pattern needs to be broken so we can allow this new conscious civilization to rise. This is part of the blueprinting. This is part of the new world. Is that we have to do things completely differently. Completely differently. And then when we land in a higher state of consciousness, we do things differently again and again and again and again. And we get to relearn. It's a constant process of unlearning and relearning, unlearning and relearning. It's a constant process of shedding and remembering. Shedding and remembering. And so, right now, I still recognize that there's a lot of people struggling. As alarms are going off. There's a lot of people struggling. And unfortunately, not living in the quantum now, which I was just in, but really diving into the reality now, a lot of people aren't going to make it. A lot of people aren't going to make it to the other side. They consciously chose that they don't want to. We had something happen the other day. Okay, I'm going to go into a little story. We were driving down the freeway. It was, 2 in the morning. We just got done doing Uber Eats. And there was a car driving the wrong way on the freeway, in the fast lane, heading straight towards us. We recognize that right now, as these systems are crumbling and people feed into the Armageddon programming, we're going to have a lot of people that don't want to be here. And just a few minutes, so it was a couple hours before this, we went to Walmart. We were going in and getting water. And some guy came out screaming, getting mad that Walmart was closing at 8 o'clock, that he couldn't get his cell phone, talking about how he's going to burn down Walmart. Okay. This is very real right now. This is part of the collapse. And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't going to make it. But there's those of us, okay? We're not sitting high up on some pedestal or some stoop doing nana nana boo boo. We're saying, guys, there's a better way and we know how to get here. We know the way. Ask, and we'll show you how to get over here. You don't have to live there anymore. We don't do it for them. We don't come up and we tell them step by step exactly how to do it. But we embody and we let them know we're here on the other side and we're holding space for you. Come over. Come over here. We know the way. This is Wayshowing in the way that I understand it, in the way that I blueprint it. So this is unfortunately what's happening. And we can't save everybody. We can't. But what we can do is save ourselves. And for those that they really want it and they really need it, we can go and we can help them out. And that's what, once again, listen to your soul and what your soul is telling you to do right now. It's getting very real. But it's about to get even more real. This is just the beginning of a lot of beautiful things and a lot of strange things that are going to happen as well. And I know for me, with what I've received, I need to make sure I'm prepared for what is to come, which I know I am. I know I am. But right now you have an opportunity to play with your tools and to get to know them and to sharpen your craft and to refine your skills. Because there are going to be ones that really, really need it really soon. And there might be a few lives that you're being called to save from imminent destruction or from potentially wanting it to end it themselves. And this is where those of us that are having to do the space holding and the retracting, it's not because we don't want to be in the mess. It's because we're holding gates open and doors open to allow those people to arrive. Everyone has their role. Own your role and what your role is authentically, and do that. But don't allow what someone else is doing or the judgment from someone else run in and rip you out of your reality stream and rip you away from your soul. That's old. That is what these things that are crumbling have been doing for a really long time, distracting us from self and what we're supposed to be doing. Not what they want us to do, what we're supposed to be doing. And that's part of the Wayshowing, is that when everyone is walking one trail and there's a bunch of grass over here that no one's walked on, we're carving the way. We're carving a new path, a new potentiality for others. So, it's been a very interesting time to be alive. And for us, me feeling all of that pain in the collective isn't doing me any good, isn't doing the collective any good either. That's an old martyrdom and sacrificial program that I'm not going to weave into anymore, an old Christed complex program that I'm not going to get into. I don't need to feel those wounds anymore. None of us do. None of us do. And this is part of the blueprinting work. So we break down that program, we break down that pattern, and then we don't engage in that pattern anymore. And it may feel uncomfortable because you're used to it. It's a cycle. You are very used to stepping in and walking a certain way and talking a certain way and acting a certain way. And part of this consciousness and a part of this becoming aware of all this stuff is recognizing that you can't do that anymore. And sometimes that means that when everyone is playing savior, you don't. Because you recognize that it's feeding into a falsified system that's keeping us stuck. And you see the way the code works and you broke the code. You know, it's interesting. It's very interesting. And anyways, it's a very, once again, this is a very, personally, I have to say, I'm not used to it. It's a very strange feeling. And that's why I wanted to come on and talk about blueprinting, because I've had some interactions lately with clients and with people where I'm sitting here going, dude, am I being a DICK right now? Am I being a complete prick about this? But I've had a lot of time to integrate and to listen to these aspects and go, there's something very important to what you're doing right now. And this is why it's really good to get in touch with the soul essence and owning your role and owning what your soul is calling you forward to do and allowing that to shine through you, because your role is paving a way for the new and to operate completely differently. And this is why I'm mentioning the Atlantean programming, because once again, it is an imprint that is held within us, and it all got kicked up. All those consciousness civilizations that have fell has been kicked up in a lot of light workers recently. And we need to break that pattern. And one of the ways we can break that pattern is by not engaging. So when you're called to go and to step in the firing lines and to save the day, that's what this imprint wants us to do. And by clearing the imprint, we don't engage with the imprint, so we don't do that. It's you know, anyways. So with the Atlantean imprint stuff, okay, to kind of lighten it up a little bit, this is a part of a clearing session I'm doing tomorrow. So I have a Galactic Shamanism Circle tomorrow. Once this is done, so I have a post in the community page, in the community forum, with the website to sign up for this session. It's $33 to join the session. We're going to be focusing on unifying your soul, communicating with your soul, but also clearing this imprint. Okay. If you want to come join, please, you're more than welcome. It's $33. If you cannot afford it, shoot me an email. Okay. Shoot me an email and ask. A service will never be denied. Unless, once again, I have had to deny some services recently because I saw that it wasn't in the highest good of that individual. Because now part of this journey too, and this blueprinting, is that I'm speaking to your highest vibrational aspects, and sometimes that means that I have to deny a service, not because I want to, but it's not in your highest good for me to do that session on you. This is the soul's journey, and this is part of the blueprinting of the healing templates. Is I can't save everyone, and I can't. Sometimes what's in your highest good is for me to not engage with it. Right? It's a very different way of living when you arrive here. And I just want to tell people that, because you might find your moments where these aspects are coming forth, or you're doing template work and blueprinting where you feel like you're being cold, or you're being stoic, or you're being some selfish. At the end of the day, listen to your soul and what your soul is telling you, and about what's going on, and what you intuitively know, and what the higher realms of consciousness are telling you about what you're doing. Because then you won't feel so bad, and you won't go into the worry and the judgment, and you allow yourself to hold that template strong, so then others can grab it and hold on to it. Because best believe these templates are coming soon to more people. And you're going to be wearing this, and you're going to be wondering what's going on. And so this is kind of like a little, not forewarning, because it's really beautiful. Like to receive these templates is a beautiful thing, and to receive these codes is a beautiful thing. It's everything you want if that's what you're called to do, and that's what your role is. but it is strange to wear it for a little while, especially when other people aren't wearing it. It's like walking around naked when everyone's wearing clothes. You feel goofy and you feel silly and weird. But pretty soon everyone's gonna, I'm using this as a funny analogy, pretty soon everyone's gonna be naked and you're gonna have fun. So enough talking about blueprinting work because I'm just going on way too long about that. But tomorrow, I'm doing this session where we're going to be breaking down the Atlantean imprints and the Atlantean seals, as well as unifying your soul and getting in touch with your soul more and communication stuff. If you want to join that, I'm going to put links in the description box, but I also have a link in my community forum. Once again, it's $33 to join. If you can't afford it, or you can afford a donation, I'll accept donations. But if you can't afford it, reach out via email. And we'll see what's in the highest alignment for you. And there will be a recording of this. So this will be recorded. So if you can't make it for whatever reason, it's going to be at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. But if you cannot make it, I will go ahead and send you the recording. So this is one of those where it's going to be kind of timeless. Some of the clearings I don't record for the sake of what we are clearing and what we're discussing, but this one will be timeless and we can repeat it, especially the unification of the soul aspect. And recognizing there's levels and with the clearing that sometimes we have to go through and there's layers we have to let go of. So if you want to join, please definitely do so. I thank everyone for coming out. It's been a little interesting being offline and just kind of like focusing on myself and doing what needed to be done, but it's a part of the soul's journey. And now it's about just allowing the space to be created for what's next. And when that call to action happens, I go. Plain and simple. I got my call a little while ago to go, and then this happened. So it was like, go, and right when I'm about to walk through the door, it's like, door closed. Well, because there's things that need to happen. So for me, you know, I'm limiting my time on social media for the sake of not feeding into the fear. I'm playing with my crystals a lot. I'm sharpening my tools and refining my skills because I know that there's going to be a knock on the door and I'm going to be ready to answer it when it's there. When that knock comes, I'm going to open the door and say, I'm here, suiting up, showing up. Let's do this. And that's what I just did tonight. Got the knock on the door, time to go live, and went live for 52 minutes. Didn't think I'd be able to do that for 52 minutes, but you know, when we get in touch with the soul and we allow it to speak through us, we actually have a lot more to talk about than we may recognize and a lot more information too. So this is the fun part about playing with the gifts, guys, and why I invite you to come out to the session, because I've been doing this with playing with my soul and getting my pieces back and letting them to talk through me, and I recognize that there's actually more that I'm aware of than I am aware of. I just need to allow it to flow through me and allow the soul to speak and not the human. So anyways, guys, with that, I'm going to just really quickly cleanse our field with some smudge. So this is a big thing that I'm doing now, is making sure I'm focusing on energy hygiene to a huge degree, especially in the containers that in the field that we're holding in these rooms as I'm going live. And it's interesting because once you do this too, not as many people pop on the live stream, because who's meant to be here will be here, and let's just leave it at that. So I'm just going in, we're just purifying our fields and just making sure that anything that we picked up in the discussion gets cleared from our fields, and we can call in our highest vibration of love here and now. Breathe this in, end this out on a good note. So much love and respect to all of you out there. I do have sessions wide open and available. So the times have changed a little bit. I still have donation sessions. Those are limited though, meaning that those are about 30-minute sessions. So if you really need long, extensive work, please reach me or shoot me out with an email, and we'll figure out a way to coordinate multiple sessions or whatever needs to get done. And I'm doing group sessions every Friday. So, and I'm gonna find different ways to be able to reach out to people and to let them know, so I don't always have to make a video, because a lot of this right now is just trying not to hop on social media as much and feed into that stuff, or limit and be more intentional with how I'm using social media. So anyways, I love you all unconditionally. Thank you so much. I'm just sending you waves of love and light, and letting you know that there's a lot of beautiful things to come, okay? I've taken multiple moments to take this up a few notches and to see what is to come, at least for me personally, and what's happening for the collective. And while there is a lot that is dissolving, there's a lot that's being grown as well, beautiful things. And so we have a choice. We can either see a barren landscape or we see an opportunity to grow a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful garden. Okay, the choice is yours in the perspective. Do you see the dirt or do you see the potential? I see both, without separation and no dualistic construct, but I see a lot of beauty in what is to come. And I invite you to see that beauty as well and to get to know yourself at a deeper, deeper level, and to go up there and to take a peek from the sky about what you see, not only for yourself, but for the collective. It really is beautiful. So I love you all. I'm gonna leave that here and let the energy kind of dissolve here and just separate my energy from this session. So much love and respect to all of you out there. And with that, I will see you on the other side. Namaste.